The space station floated in the darkness between three dying stars. It was old, very old. The metal walls had seen thousands of soldiers come and go over 300 years. This was Station Apex 7, home to the most famous military academy in the entire galaxy. Species from 47 different planets sent their best warriors here to learn, to train, and to become the deadliest hunters in known space. Commander Velcris stood at the window of his office, watching a transport ship approach the docking bay. His body was tall and thin, covered in hard black shell like an insect. His species, the Mentari, had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They were born hunters. Their arms ended in blades that could cut through steel. Their eyes could see heat signatures in complete darkness. Velcris had killed his first enemy before he could walk. Today was an important day. The final examination for the Advanced Predator Tactics course would begin in 6 hours. This was the hardest test in the academy. Many students died during this exam. Many more failed and were sent home in shame. Only the strongest and most ruthless hunters passed. Velcris turned away from the window and walked toward the briefing room. His legs clicked against the metal floor with each step. He had reviewed the files of every student in this year's class. Most of them impressed him. The Grothians were 9 feet tall and could lift a ground vehicle with one hand. The Silcathi could turn invisible and move without making any sound. The Fenrithi hunted in packs like wolves and could track prey across entire continents by smell alone. And then there was the human. Velcris stopped walking and made a sound of annoyance. Private First Class Jake Morrison. Terran human. Age 24 Earth years. The commander had argued against accepting humans into the academy. They were weak. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons of any kind. Their skin was soft. Their bones broke easily. They could not see in the dark. They could not smell danger. They were, by every measure that mattered, prey animals pretending to be predators. But the Galactic Council had insisted. Humans had joined the coalition 15 years ago, after the First Contact War. That war had been confusing for everyone. The humans should have lost. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched in every way. But somehow, impossibly, they had fought the Grothian invasion fleet to a standstill. They had used tricks, traps, and tactics that no one had ever seen before. In the end, both sides agreed to peace simply because the war was costing too much. Since then, humans had spread across coalition space like a quiet tide. They were everywhere now, trading, building, exploring. And some of them, like Private Morrison, had decided to join the military. The briefing room was already filling with students when Velcris arrived. He stood at the front and watched them enter. The Grothians came first, their massive bodies barely fitting through the doors. They laughed and pushed each other, eager for violence. Behind them came the Silcathi, their scales shifting colors as they moved through shadows. The Fenrithi entered as a group, always together, their ears rotating to catch every sound. Jake Morrison walked in last. He was alone. Velcris studied the human carefully. Morrison was tall for his species, about 6 feet, but that still made him shorter than almost everyone else in the room. He had brown hair cut short and eyes the color of forest soil. He wore the standard gray uniform of the academy, and he carried nothing except a small datapad. He found a seat in the back corner and sat down without speaking to anyone. The other students ignored him completely. A Grothian named Gorthic looked at the human and laughed. "Look," he said to his friends, "they sent us a snack for the examination." The Grothians thought this was very funny. Even some of the Silcathi made hissing sounds of amusement. Jake did not react. He simply opened his datapad and began reading something on the screen. His face showed no emotion at all. Velcris found this interesting. Most humans he had met were emotional creatures. They smiled too much, talked too much, and reacted to everything around them. This one was different. This one was quiet, still, like a rock in a river, letting the water flow around him without moving. The commander activated the main display screen. A holographic image of a jungle planet appeared, rotating slowly in the air above the students' heads. "Welcome to your final examination," Velcris announced. His voice was cold and sharp. "In 6 hours you will be transported to Nexar 4, also known as the Hunting Grounds. This planet is home to some of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. You will work in teams of 4. Your mission is simple. Find, track, and capture or kill an Exari apex beast." The room went quiet. Even the Grothians stopped laughing. The Nexari apex beast was legendary. It was 15 feet of muscle, claws, and teeth. It had killed more hunters than any other creature in Coalition records. 73% of all hunting parties that faced it never returned. "Those who succeed will graduate with the highest honors," Velcris continued. "Those who fail will be dead. There is no middle ground. There is no rescue. Once you land on Nexar 4, you survive or you die. That is all." He began reading out the team assignments. Team 1, Team 2, Team 3. Each team was a mix of species, designed to test how different hunters work together. Team 7, Velcris said. Gorthok of the Stone Mountains. Selitha of the Shadow Web. Fenris, pack leader of the Northern Tribes. He paused. And Private Jake Morrison of Earth. Gorthok's laughter echoed through the room. "This is a joke, yes? We are burdened with the human? He will slow us down. He will get us killed." Silitha's tongue flicked out, tasting the air in Jake's direction. "Perhaps we can use him as bait. The apex beast will eat him while we attack from behind." Fenris, a silver-furred hunter with golden eyes, simply stared at Jake with open disgust. She said nothing. She did not need to. Her expression said everything. Jake looked up from his datapad for the first time. He met Gorthok's eyes without fear. Then Silitha's. Then Fenris's. "I've read the mission files," Jake said. His voice was calm and steady. "I know what we're hunting. I know how it moves, how it thinks, how it kills. You can use me however you want. Bait, scout, pack mule. I don't care. But I promise you one thing." He stood up and something in his eyes made the nearest Grothian take a small step backward. "I'm going to survive this exam. The only question is whether you will too." Then he walked out of the briefing room, leaving behind a silence that lasted a very long time. The transport ship shook hard as it entered the atmosphere of Nexar 4. Inside, Team 7 sat in silence. The only sound was the screaming of wind against metal and the deep rumble of engines. Fighting gravity. Jake Morrison checked his equipment for the 3rd time. Standard survival pack. Water purification tablets. Emergency medical kit. A pulse rifle that felt too light in his hands. And one small device he had requested from the Academy archives, hidden in a pouch on his belt. Nobody had asked what it was. Nobody cared what the human was carrying. Across from him, Gorthok was sharpening his claws against each other. The Grothian was enormous, nearly 9 feet tall even sitting down. His skin was the color of wet stone, thick and rough. His arms were as wide as Jake's entire body. When he smiled, which was often, his mouth showed 4 rows of teeth designed for crushing bone. "Human," Gorthok said without looking up. "When we land, you will stay in the back. You will carry supplies. You will not speak unless spoken to. If you slow us down, I will leave you behind. If you run away, I will find you and kill you myself. Do you understand?" Jake nodded. "I understand. Good." Gorthok went back to his claws. Silitha sat in the corner. her scale shifting between gray and brown as shadows moved across her body. The Sylcathi were assassins by nature. They could change their skin color to match any background, becoming nearly invisible. Their bones were flexible, allowing them to squeeze through spaces that seemed impossible. When they killed, they did it quickly and quietly, usually from behind Dodd. She was watching Jake with her yellow eyes, studying him, measuring him. "You do not seem afraid," Scylla said. Her voice was soft, like wind through dry leaves. "Should I be?" Jake asked. "Yes, the apex beast has killed hunters far stronger than you. It has killed Grothians. It has killed my own kind. It feels no fear, no mercy, no hesitation. It is the perfect predator." Jake tilted his head slightly. "Perfect predators don't exist. Everything has a weakness. Everything can be beaten." Scylla made a hissing sound that might have been laughter. "Human confidence. I have heard stories about this. Your species believes it can conquer anything. Perhaps that is why so many of you die." "Perhaps," Jake agreed. "Or perhaps that's why we're still alive." Fenris, the Fenrithi pack leader, growled low in her throat. She was tired of talking. Her species communicated mostly through body language, scent, and short barks. Words were inefficient. Words were weak. She wanted to hunt, to run, to feel blood on her tongue. The ship's computer announced their arrival. The transport shuddered one final time and then settled onto solid ground. The rear door opened with a hiss of hydraulics, and the jungle of Nexer 4 filled their senses. The smell hit them first. It was thick and heavy, a mixture of rotting plants, animal musk, and something else. Something dangerous. The air was hot and wet, sticking to their skin like warm oil. The light was green and strange, filtered through a canopy of trees so tall that their tops disappeared into mist. Gorthic stood up and walked to the door. He took a deep breath and smiled. "Beautiful," he said. "A perfect hunting ground. I can smell prey everywhere." Fenris pushed past him and dropped to all fours, her nose touching the ground. Her ears rotated in different directions, catching sounds from all around them. After a moment, she stood up and pointed deeper into the jungle. "The beast's territory is that direction," she said. 2 kilometers, maybe 3. I can smell old kills. Old blood. It hunts here often." Silitha had already disappeared. One moment she was standing beside the ship, and the next she was simply gone. A voice came from somewhere in the trees above them. "I see a path. Animal trail, used frequently. Large creatures. We should follow it." Gorthig nodded and started walking. Fenris followed, her body low and ready. Jake picked up the supply pack and fell into step behind them, exactly where he had been told to stay. For the first hour, nothing happened. They moved through the jungle in silence, following the trail that Silitha had found. The trees grew thicker and taller as they went deeper. Strange birds screamed in the canopy. Small creatures rustled through the undergrowth. Running from the sound of their footsteps, Jake watched everything. He noticed that the claw marks on the trees were too even, too regular. Natural animals scratched randomly when they marked territory. These marks were placed at exactly the same height, exactly the same distance apart. Someone was sending a message. He noticed that the animal sounds were wrong. There were calls, but no responses. The birds above them were screaming warnings, but nothing was answering. That meant the smaller animals had already fled. That meant something was close. He noticed that Fenris kept sniffing the air with a confused expression. She was tracking a scent ahead of them, but something else was bothering her. Something she could not quite identify. "Stop," Jake said quietly. Gorthic did not even slow down. "You do not give orders, human. There's something wrong." "There is nothing wrong. We are hunters. We are tracking our prey. This is what we do. Jake stepped forward and grabbed Gorthic's arm. It was like grabbing a tree trunk, but the Grothian stopped out of surprise more than force. Listen to me, Jake said. The apex beast is not ahead of us. It's behind us. It's been following us since we landed. Gorthic stared at him. Then he laughed loud and long. You are insane, human. No creature follows a Grothian. We are the top of every food chain. We are the ones who hunt. We are never the prey. Jake let go of his arm. Ask Fenris. She's been confused for the last kilometer. She can smell something, but she can't figure out what it is. That's because the scent is coming from behind us, mixing with our own trail. Everyone looked at Fenris. The Fenrithi's ears flattened against her head. She did not want to admit that the human might be right. But slowly, reluctantly, she turned around and sniffed the air behind them. Her eyes went wide. He's right, she whispered. There's something back there. Something big. I missed it because it smells like us. Like Predator. My brain ignored it. Silitha dropped from the trees, her scales pale with alarm. I saw nothing behind us. I was watching the front. The path ahead. That's the point, Jake said. It wanted you to watch the front. It's been hurting us, pushing us forward. We're walking straight into a kill zone. Gorthic's smile finally disappeared. For the first time since they met, he looked at Jake with something other than contempt. You knew this was happening. How? Jake reached into his pack and pulled out his datapad. On the screen was everything he had learned about the apex beast in the 6 hours before they landed. Hunting patterns, territory maps, kill sites, behavioral analysis from the few survivors who had faced it and lived. The beast is smart, Jake explained. Smarter than most people think. It doesn't just hunt. It plans. It studies its prey before it attacks. And it never hunts alone. As if answering his words, a sound came from the jungle around them. It was low and deep, vibrating through the ground and up through their bones. It was not one voice. It was many, coming from all directions at once. The hunting party had become the hunted, and the real test was about to begin. The jungle had gone quiet. No birds called from the canopy. No insects buzzed through the heavy air. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. There was only the low, rumbling sound that came from everywhere and nowhere, vibrating through the ground like the heartbeat of some massive creature. Team 7 stood in a tight circle, backs together, weapons raised. For the first time, they moved as a unit. Fear had done what hours of training could not. It had made them a team. Gorthic's massive hands were shaking, not from fear of battle, but from the unfamiliar feeling of being prey. In his entire life, nothing had ever hunted him. He was a Grothian. He was born to be the hunter, the killer, the top of every food chain he entered. This feeling of being watched, stalked, measured as food. It was wrong. It made something cold grow in his stomach. We need to move, Silitha hissed. Her scales were flickering rapidly between colors, unable to settle on one camouflage. We cannot stay here. We are in the open. Move where? Fenris growled. Her ears were pressed flat against her skull, rotating constantly. They are all around us. Every direction leads to them. Jake was the only one who had not raised his weapon. He stood with his eyes closed, listening, feeling. His grandmother had taught him this back on Earth in the forests of Montana. When the deer go silent, she had told him, when the rabbits hide and the birds stop singing, that is when you must pay attention. The forest is telling you something. You just have to learn how to listen. He listened now, not to the rumbling sound that surrounded them, but to what was beneath it. The pattern, the rhythm, the meaning. There are 5 of them, Jake said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. What? Gorthik demanded. 5 apex beasts. The main one, the one they call the Alpha, is behind us. It's been following our trail since we landed. The other 4 are positioned around us in a half circle. They're pushing us forward. Towards something. How can you possibly know this? Silva asked. Her yellow eyes were wide with something between fear and confusion. Jake opened his eyes. The sounds. They're communicating. Low-frequency rumbles that travel through the ground. They're coordinating. The Alpha sends a signal, the others respond. I've been counting the responses. 5 different tones. 5 different positions. Fenris stared at him like he had grown a second head. She was the tracker of their group. She had trained her entire life to read the movements of prey. And yet this human, this soft, clawless human, had noticed things she had missed completely. If they wanted us dead, Jake continued, we would already be dead. They're not hunting us for food. They're testing us, measuring us. They want to know what we can do. Testing us? Gorthik laughed, but there was no humor in it. We are the ones here to test them. We are the hunters. Not anymore. Jake pointed ahead, where the trail opened into a small clearing. They want us to go there. That's the kill zone. Open ground, no cover, surrounded by dense jungle on all sides. Perfect ambush spot. Gorthik looked at the clearing. Then he looked at Jake. Then he made a decision. What do you suggest, human? You seem to know so much about these creatures. Tell us what to do. It was the first time anyone had asked Jake for his opinion. He did not waste the opportunity. We don't go into the clearing. We change the game. Make them come to us on our terms, not theirs. He pointed to a massive tree nearby. Its trunk was wider than a Grothian was tall, and its roots created a natural wall on one side. We put our backs to that tree. It limits the angles they can attack from. Silva, you go up. Find a branch with good visibility. Call out movements. Silva hesitated for only a moment. Then her scales shifted to the color of bark, and she began climbing. Fenris, you stay low and mobile. You're fast. They won't expect you to charge. When they come, you go for their legs. Not to kill, just to slow them down. Distract them. Fenris nodded slowly. The human was making sense. She did not like it, but she could not argue with his logic. Gorthik, you're our wall. When they hit us, you hold the line. Don't chase. Don't attack. Just hold. Gorthik frowned. I am not a defender. I am a killer. I should be leading the attack. If you chase them, you're alone. If you're alone, you're dead. They want you to chase. That's how they've killed every Grothian who ever came here. Something in Jake's voice made Gorthik pause. There was no fear in it. No uncertainty. The human spoke like someone who had been in this situation before. Like someone who had faced death many times and learned its patterns. And what will you do? Gorthik asked. Jake pulled a small device from his belt pouch. It was a simple thing, silver and black, with a single button on the top. I'm going to end this, but I need time. Keep them busy. Don't let them reach me. What is that thing? Jake smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something no one else knew. Insurance. From above, Silda's voice cut through the silence. Movement. West side. Large. Coming fast. Then from the east. Then from the south. The creatures were done waiting. They were coming. Gorthik raised his massive fists. Fenris dropped to all fours, her muscles tight and ready to spring. Above them, Silda drew her poison-tipped blades. Jake stood behind them, his fingers working on the device. He needed to calibrate it to the right frequency. He had studied the data files for hours, memorizing the patterns of apex beast communication. But theory and practice were different things. If he got the frequency wrong, the device would be useless. They would all die. No pressure. The first beast burst from the jungle like a nightmare given flesh. It was 15 feet long from nose to tail, covered in scales that shimmered with bioluminescent blue. Its mouth opened to reveal rows of teeth, each as long as Jake's forearm. Its eyes were black and empty, like looking into deep space. Gorthik met it head-on. His fist connected with the beast's skull with a sound like thunder. The creature stumbled, surprised. Nothing had ever hit back before. For a single moment, it was confused. That moment was all Fenris needed. She launched herself at the beast's rear legs, her claws raking across the scales. The beast roared and spun, but Fenris was already gone. Circling for another attack. From above, Scylla dropped onto a second beast that had tried to circle around. Her blades found the soft spots between its scales, injecting poison. The creature screamed and thrashed, but the Silcathi was already climbing again. Disappearing into the darkness of the canopy, two more beasts emerged from the jungle. Then a third. They were faster now, angrier. The game had changed. Their prey was fighting back. Jake kept working on the device. His fingers were steady despite the chaos around him. He had learned this skill from his grandmother too. Stillness in the storm. Focus in the fire. When everything is falling apart, she had said, that is when you must be most calm. That is when you must think most clearly. One of the beasts broke through Gorthik's guard and charged straight at Jake. Time seemed to slow. He could see every detail of the creature's face. The teeth. The eyes. The saliva dripping from its jaws. He did not run. He did not scream. He simply pressed the button on the device. Nothing visible happened. But the beast stopped. Its entire body went rigid, like someone had frozen it in place. A sound came from its throat, not a roar, but a whine. A confused, frightened whine. The other beasts stopped too. Their attacks faltered. They looked at Jake with something that might have been recognition. Or fear. A new sound filled the jungle. Deeper than the others. Older. It came from behind them, from the direction they had traveled. Footsteps massive and slow, crushing plants and shaking the ground. The Alpha had arrived, and it wanted to know what Jake had just done. The Alpha emerged from the jungle like a god stepping out of shadow. It was bigger than the others, much bigger. 20 feet from nose to tail, with scales that had turned dark gray from age and battle. Scars covered its body, each one a story of survival, of victory, of enemies defeated and devoured. Its eyes were not black like the younger beasts. They were gold, bright and intelligent, burning with a fire that spoke of 60 million years of evolution. This was a creature that had ruled its world since before humans existed. Before most species in the galaxy existed. It had seen hunters come and go for centuries. It had killed them all. Now it looked at Jake Morrison. A soft human with no claws, no fangs, no armor. And it did something none of its prey had ever seen before. It waited. The younger beasts had pulled back, forming a loose circle around the clearing. Gorthik was bleeding from a dozen wounds, but still standing, his fists raised. Scylla had dropped from the trees, her scales pale and her poison running low. Fenris was panting, her silver fur matted with blood that was not all her own. They had survived the first attack, but they all knew they could not survive another. Jake stepped forward, away from his teammates, closer to the Alpha. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to make himself small and invisible. But he did not listen to his instincts. Instincts were for animals. Humans were something else. "You're intelligent," Jake said to the Alpha. His voice was calm, steady, like he was talking to a colleague instead of a monster. "More intelligent than the records say. You communicate with your pack using low-frequency sounds. You coordinate attacks. You test your prey before you kill them. You're not just a predator. You're a general. The Alpha tilted its massive head. Its golden eyes focused on Jake with an intensity that felt like physical pressure. I know what you're thinking, Jake continued. You're thinking about how easy it would be to kill me. One bite, one swipe of those claws. I'd be gone. My friends, too. You've done it 1,000 times before. Gorthik made a sound of warning. Human, what are you doing? Stop talking and prepare to fight. Jake ignored him. He kept his eyes locked on the Alpha's golden gaze. But you're also curious. You've never seen anyone do what I just did. I spoke to your pack in their own language. I froze them with a single sound. You want to know how. You want to know what I am. The Alpha's claws dug into the soft earth. Its tail swept slowly from side to side. It was listening, deciding. Jake raised the device in his hand. This is a sonic emitter. I programmed it with your species' communication frequencies. Right now, it's broadcasting a distress call. A very specific distress call. The kind your pack uses when juveniles are in danger. Something changed in the Alpha's eyes. A flash of recognition. Of understanding. I know about your family, Jake said. The records don't mention it, but I figured it out from the data. The apex beasts don't just hunt in packs. They're family units. That's why you're so protective of this territory. That's why you kill everyone who comes here. You're not just hunting. You're defending your home. Your children. Fenris made a small sound of surprise. She understood pack dynamics. She understood family loyalty. For the first time, she looked at the Alpha not as a monster, but as something she could recognize. Something she could respect. Jake lowered the device slowly. Right now, your mate and 3 juveniles are hidden about half a kilometer north of here. They've been there since we arrived. You positioned them somewhere safe while you dealt with the threat. But if I increase the power on this emitter, the signal will reach them. They'll come running. And when they do, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The Alpha understood perfectly. If the family came, they would be exposed, vulnerable. The human was threatening not just the Alpha, but everything the Alpha cared about. For a long moment, nothing happened. The jungle held its breath. Even the younger beasts were still, watching their leader, waiting for the signal to attack. Then Jake did something that shocked everyone, including himself. He turned off the device. But I'm not going to do that, he said, because I don't want to kill your family. I don't want to kill you. I just want my team to walk out of here alive. The Alpha's eyes narrowed. It was not used to mercy. Mercy was weakness. Mercy was something prey showed in their final moments. Begging for life, they would not receive. But there was nothing weak in the human's voice. Nothing desperate. He spoke like someone holding all the power, choosing not to use it. Here's what's going to happen, Jake said. In about 15 minutes, our extraction shuttle is going to arrive at the landing zone. I called it before we engaged you. My team is going to walk back to that shuttle and leave this planet. You're going to let us. Gorthik stepped forward, confused and angry. Human, this is insane. We came here to capture or kill this beast. That is our mission. That is how we pass the examination. Jake did not look at him. He kept his eyes on the Alpha. The examination was never about killing, Jake said. It was about surviving. It was about understanding. Every team that came here tried to fight. Every team tried to prove they were the bigger predator. And 73% of them died. Because they never understood the truth. What truth? Silitha asked quietly. That you can't out-predator a perfect predator. The apex beasts have been hunting for 60 million years. They're better at it than we'll ever be. The only way to win is to change the rules, to offer something other than violence. Jake looked at the Alpha with something that might have been respect. You let us live. Your family stays safe. The Academy records will show that we encountered you, that we survived, that we demonstrated a new tactical approach. We graduate. You go back to your life. Everyone wins. The Alpha stared at Jake for what felt like hours. Its golden eyes searched the human's face, looking for deception, for tricks, for the kind of treachery that prey always showed in the end. It found nothing. Just honesty. Just a hunter recognizing another hunter. Jake took a step forward. Then another, until he was close enough to touch the Alpha's scarred snout. Close enough that one bite would end his life. So what's it going to be? Jake asked. His voice was quiet now, almost gentle, like he was talking to an equal. Because in that moment, that's exactly what they were. Two apex predators. Two generals. Two creatures who had mastered the art of survival. The entire galaxy would remember what happened next. Commander Velcris was watching the live feed from orbit, his mandibles frozen in disbelief. Every instructor at the Academy had stopped what they were doing to stare at their screens. Every cadet in the viewing hall sat in absolute silence. Barely breathing, Jake Morrison looked into the golden eyes of a 60-million-year-old predator and asked the question that would become legend. Alive? Or in pieces? The Alpha held his gaze for 3 heartbeats. Then, slowly, deliberately, it closed its eyes and lowered its massive head. Submission, acknowledgement, respect. When it raised its head again, it made a sound, low, deep, a command to its pack. The younger beasts melted back into the jungle. The rumbling stopped. The forest began to breathe again. The Alpha looked at Jake one final time. Then it turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows like a ghost. Team 7 stood alone in the clearing, alive, unharmed, victorious. Nobody moved for a very long time. The extraction shuttle landed in the clearing exactly when Jake had said it would. The door opened to reveal a pilot whose face was a mixture of relief and disbelief. He had been listening to the radio chatter. He knew what had happened. He just could not believe it. Team 7 walked aboard in silence. Gorthuk moved slowly, his wounds finally catching up with him. Silitha helped him sit, her scales showing colors none of them had ever seen before. Fenris kept looking back at the jungle, her golden eyes searching for the Alpha that had simply walked away. Jake sat in the corner and closed his eyes. He was tired, more tired than he had ever been in his life. The fear he had been holding back finally hit him, a wave of ice water crashing through his body. His hands started shaking. His teeth began to chatter. He had been bluffing. The device in his pocket could broadcast sounds, yes, but he had not been certain about the frequencies. He had not known for sure that the Alpha had a family. He had guessed, based on behavior patterns and territory mapping. Everything he had said, every confident word, every calm threat, had been built on guesses and hope. If he had been wrong, they would all be dead. But he had not been wrong. And that was what mattered. The shuttle rose through the atmosphere of Nexa 4, leaving the green jungle behind. Through the window, Jake watched the planet shrink until it was just another bright point in the infinite darkness of space. When they docked at Station Apex 7, a crowd was waiting. Not just a few instructors, but hundreds of cadets, staff members, scientists, and officials. Word had spread through the station faster than light itself. Everyone wanted to see the human who had talked his way past the deadliest predator in the galaxy. Commander Velcris was standing at the front of the crowd. His insectoid face was impossible to read, but his body language spoke clearly. He stood straighter than usual. His mandibles were held at an angle that indicated respect. When Jake walked off the shuttle, Velcris stepped forward to meet him. "Private Morrison," the commander said. "In 300 years of this examination, No one has ever done what you did today. Jake straightened despite his exhaustion. Sir, every team before you tried to fight. The strong ones, the fast ones, the deadly ones. They all believed that victory meant killing. They all believed that being a predator meant being the most violent creature in any room. Velcris paused. They were wrong. He turned to address the crowd, raising his voice so everyone could hear. Today, Private Morrison taught us something that we should have understood centuries ago. True predatory superiority is not about strength. It is not about speed or claws or fangs. It is about intelligence, adaptability, the ability to see beyond the obvious and find the path that others cannot see. Velcris looked at Jake with those alien eyes. When I asked Private Morrison to explain his actions, he quoted an ancient human strategist, a warrior named Sun Tzu who lived thousands of years ago on Earth. The quote was this: "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." The crowd murmured. Some nodded in understanding. Others looked confused. The apex beast was never meant to be killed, Velcris continued. It was meant to be understood. The true test was not whether you could defeat it in combat. It was whether you could see another way. In 300 years, Private Morrison is the first cadet to pass that test. He turned to face Team 7 directly. Gorthik of the Stone Mountains, you showed courage and strength beyond expectation. You followed an untested plan from an untested leader. That takes a different kind of bravery. You pass with honors. Gorthik's stone face cracked into something that might have been a smile. He looked at Jake and nodded slowly. Silither of the Shadow Web, you adapted to a changing situation without hesitation. You trusted your team when every instinct told you to flee. You pass with honors. Silither's scales shimmered with colors of pride and gratitude. She bowed her head in acknowledgement. Fenris, pack leader of the northern tribes, you recognized a kindred spirit in an ancient enemy. You understood what the Alpha was protecting because you would protect the same things. You pass with honors. Fenris lifted her head and let out a long, howling call. It was a sound of triumph, of pack victory. Others of her kind in the crowd answered, their voices joining hers in a chorus that echoed through the docking bay. Finally, Velcris turned to Jake. Private First Class Jake Morrison of Earth, you demonstrated tactical genius, psychological insight, and the rarest form of courage there is. The courage to show mercy when you had every right to destroy. You do not just pass this examination. Velcris reached into his uniform and pulled out a small medal on a silver chain. It was shaped like a star, with a single eye at its center. You received the Eye of the Hunter. This award has been given only 17 times in the history of this academy. It recognizes not just skill, but wisdom. Not just victory, but understanding. Wear it with pride, Private Morrison. You have earned it. Jake took the medal with hands that were still slightly shaking. He looked at it for a long moment, then hung it around his neck. That night, there was a celebration in the common hall. Cadets from every species raised glasses to Team 7. Gorthik told the story of the battle at least 15 times, and each time his wounds got bigger and his punches got stronger. Silither was surrounded by admirers asking about her climbing techniques. Fenris had found other Fenrithi in the crowd and was leading them in howling songs of victory. Jake sat alone at a table in the corner, watching it all with a small smile on his face. Gorthik eventually broke away from his crowd and walked over to Jake's table. The massive Grothian sat down heavily, the bench groaning under his weight. "Human," Gorthik said. "Jake, I owe you an apology." Jake raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For doubting you. For treating you like prey. For thinking that size and strength were the only things that mattered." Gorthik looked down at his scarred hands. "I have been a warrior my entire life. I thought I understood what it meant to be dangerous. But you showed me something today." "What's that?" Gorthik met his eyes. The most dangerous creature in any room is not the biggest one. It is the one who understands what everyone else is thinking. The one who sees moves before they are made. The one who can make their enemy choose to walk away. He paused. That is you, Jake. That is what humans are. Jake thought about his grandmother, about the forests of Montana, about all the lessons she had taught him before she died. My grandmother used to say something, Jake replied. She said that humans are not the top of the food chain because we're the strongest. We're the top because we're the most stubborn. We refuse to accept that any problem is unsolvable. We keep thinking, keep adapting, keep finding new ways until we win. Fenris appeared and sat down beside them. Her golden eyes were warm now, filled with respect instead of contempt. You could have killed the Alpha, she said. You had the means, the device, the knowledge. Why did you choose mercy? Jake looked out the window at the stars. Because killing is easy, he said. Anyone can kill. But making something that powerful, that ancient, that proud, choose to walk away, making it recognize you as an equal, that's real dominance. He turned to look at his teammates, at the two aliens who had started the day wanting to use him as bait and ended it calling him friend. That's what humans do, Jake said. We don't just win fights. We make our enemies decide not to fight us in the first place. We change the rules of the game until we're the ones writing them. Silitha had joined them now, her scales reflecting the lights of the celebration. The galaxy will hear about this, she said. Everyone will know what you did today, what it means. Jake nodded. He understood. The story would spread. Other species would hear about the human who faced down an apex predator and talked it into retreat. They would wonder. They would worry. They would look at the soft, clawless, fangless humans and see something they had never seen before. Potential. Danger. The promise of a species that could not be predicted, could not be cornered, could not be beaten by simple force. The galaxy had underestimated humanity after today. They never would again. Jake Morrison raised his glass to his. Teammates, to his new friends, to the future that was just beginning. To Team 7, he said. To Team 7, they answered and somewhere on a green jungle planet far below the stars, an ancient golden-eyed predator looked up at the sky and remembered the strange creature who had shown it something new, something it had never expected to find in prey. An equal,